Radio Control 99.4, it's Ken Gearry, your MUSA President here, and I would just like to welcome our Vice-Chancellor, the Honourable Steve Maharey in the studio, and our President of the Extramural Student Society, Ralph Springett. How's it going, guys?
Good to be here. The year's coming to a very nice end as the weather improves here in the Manawatu, so we're looking good.
Nice, nice.
Yep, thanks for the invite to be part of the last blog of 2010.
I can't believe the year's just about over. It's just flown by, really.
It's actually good to hear you say that, because older people like myself often think it's age that makes it feel like the world's going by faster, but if you're feeling it too, it must be going by faster.
It's been a hectic year. So what's been the highlight of your year, Ralph?
Well, I think the highlights would have to be the graduation dinner. Last year I finished the last papers of my undergrad and really enjoyed the evening, meeting other graduates and just really celebrating such a huge achievement. It's taken me 24 years.
Holy, that's awesome. What about your highlight of the year, Steve?
Graduations actually are my highlight of the year. The ceremonies we hold in Albany, here in Palmerston North, Manawatu, and down in Wellington are the occasions when you get to meet all sorts of people who are celebrating the end of their study. Often they go on to more study, but they're celebrating what they've got. And we have a whole lot of celebrations around that: graduation dinners, Maori celebrations, Pacific Island ones, the extramural. I think it's the time you really find out what the university is really doing and what impact it's making on people's lives. So I enjoy the graduations. Those are my high points.
Awesome. Well, yeah, my highlights for the year, probably Trees for Students for one. That was awesome. We had about 70 students plant over 600 native trees down at Pitt Park. But also just being re-elected, I guess, for next year, coming on board with MUSA for another year. It's going to be a challenging year. So I guess that sort of leads into the next discussion, really, is around challenges for the remainder of 2010 and looking into 2011. What are some of the university's challenges moving forward? Obviously with the Tertiary Education Commission making some...
Yeah, I think the biggest challenges you want to put in front of students at the moment would be the changes the Tertiary Education Commission has brought about. They've capped the funding for student places, so that means there's now a fixed limit. And of course they've introduced new rules like you've got to complete your degree in a certain period of time, you've got to move on to a higher qualification. There are limits on access to loans coming through. I think what this means in a nutshell for a student now is enrol early. Enrolment's open right now, so enrol now, and understand that the environment now is one where there are quite a lot of constraints on the university which relate to you as a student progressing through your degree or your qualification in the number of years that are set out. That gives you access to loans and allowances, and that gives you access to the university. Those are big changes from what used to happen in the past, where people had basically limitless access to a loan or an allowance and so on. Now there are time limits on all of this, so it's important to enrol, get yourself established in the university, and then be aware of the fact that there are constraints on things like the amount of time you can take to study. So be aware of all that. This is a big change in the education system, but it's here to stay.
Got anything you want to add to that, Ralph?
Yeah, well, for us, I'd say for extramural students, it's the tertiary education strategy itself, which is driven by the TEC but comes from the government. And we see here this devaluing of lifelong learning, this sort of move into youth on campus students, and that is a real concern for both Massey, I expect, but also for our society. So yeah, key issue number one would be around that education strategy. Other areas though, this voluntary student membership of student associations is also a real concern. I see the representation of students on campus as being undermined by this type of legislation. It will be extremely difficult for students to professionally and effectively engage at the same sort of level as they have been.
Yeah, that's for sure.
So yeah, we've got some long-term, fairly serious consequences to something like this coming in, and I don't think it's been thought through properly.
No.
Just I can say on the upside of all this that in relation to the voluntary student membership issue, the university and I think the students' associations agree that whatever happens here, we want to move forward together on this to make sure that we maintain what's a very strong and positive relationship. So we've agreed that in the early in the new year we'll be getting down to business to have a look at the impact of that bill and moving to a situation that suits the needs of students and suits the needs of the university. And on the other issues about the strategy for the overall tertiary sector, it's worth stressing that this university wants to see you enrolled, wants to see you here, whether you're an extramural student, whether you're a student on campus, whether you're a student that mixes them both up. Doors are open, we want to see you enrolled, but the key thing to do is to enrol early so you make sure you've secured your place.
I guess one of the challenges for returning students after their first year of study is now they're not really going to have that same degree of flexibility. They might have taken a few papers and got open to a couple of areas of specialisation, and they're sort of like, oh well, I'm not actually interested in majoring in that. Now they're actually going to have to start thinking a lot more about what it is they want to specialise in, what major they want to go down. Yeah.
I think the consequences of not making good choices have really risen.
Yeah.
So students are going to have to be very careful about choosing areas or specialising down into things which maybe wouldn't suit them or are a bit risky. They're going to possibly make more conservative choices. So this is the way they're being pushed. I'll reserve
it's very
comment
challenging because when you're coming out of high school, I like to think of going to university as you're just pointing yourself in a direction, and you're just seeing like, well, am I actually going to be interested in this? But now it's going to be increasingly difficult to.
I think the lesson that comes from this is what Ralph Springett has just said. It does really mean a lot more thought about the choices that you make, because the consequences of not making the right choices have certainly gone up from previous generations where people felt they could move around and there was the ability to do that. There's less ability to do that. So getting good information, talking to careers advisors, talking to parents, getting out and having a think about where you might want to go in the future, those are very important things for a student to do today. This year's been quite an uncertain year, and I think one of the things that has been raised a bit is, so what will happen next year? Are we looking at big changes again and things like second semester being closed down and summer school being accessible? This year was a difficult year to plan because all the changes were coming through during this year, and the university had to do things like shut down a good deal of the summer school. People are still doing summer school, but fewer numbers. Next year we now have an agreement with the TEC about how many students we can enrol, and we've got a much better grip on when we can take those students. So you should be able to enrol next year and with predictability move through to summer school if you want to. That's your choice, because we now have an understanding with the TEC about the students we can take, and we've planned that forward for the year. So there's certainty for next year.
Cool.
Yeah, I think students, one of the key things they need to know is they've got a place if they pass. Now, you do have to pass. This is a really strict criteria, I suppose. It's been placed into the system. And this is a new thing, really, and not necessarily a bad thing. So once you've passed, you have an assurance, I suppose, from the university that they will maintain a stable suite of enrolments based on historical enrolments, and you should be able to find a place. So you can plan with confidence to take the papers throughout this year and expect to be able to do the same next year.
Cool.
A reasonably positive outcome from a very difficult year this year.
But because it's Christmas, can I say, Kent, I think the university's had a great year. More students than ever have wanted to enrol with us, which is ironic in this environment, but the university is attracting a lot of attention. We've spent a lot of time on things like our agri-food strategy, on our creativity strategy, on innovation strategies. That's paid enormous dividends in terms of our research program, what we've been doing in terms of attracting attention from around the world to the university. So I'm going to Christmas with a long list of achievements of people right throughout the university that I feel pretty good about. So, yes, there's difficulties. It's a tough time for universities actually all over the world, but this university is going great guns, and we're looking forward to seeing you all here next year, as well as hoping that the rest of the year with exams and so on go well for you.
Yeah.
And, well, on that same thread, EXMSS has had an amazingly good year. It's been 50 years of distance study at Massey University this year, and we've been celebrating that throughout the year. We still have some events to come. We have published a book called the EXMSS Files, and that will be available, from now on. And we've also set up some help for students where students should be able to review papers and look at the results of other people's reviews. That will help them make paper choices. And we've also set up a trust to ensure that we're going to be here forever. Even if our members reduce somewhat, we think a trust that will provide scholarships will be a really useful part of that support.
Well, it's also been a fantastic year for myself. I came on board in June, and I've been re-elected for next year, but just looking forward to welcoming the new executive, getting them prepared for next year. Also, we've got a website that's being redeveloped at the moment, which I'm looking forward to launching that. We've also got a big end-of-year party up at the Massey Event Centre. We've got Cora and Crushington, Dirty Needles. It's going to be an epic gig, so try and get there if you can. But thanks for coming in today, guys. Appreciate it, and have a safe Christmas.
Thank you.
Yeah.